Nadella, a soft-spoken engineer and an Indian immigrant, faced the uphill battle of changing a company that was still under Bill Gates's enormous shadow. So what did he do? He hit refresh. That is also the name of his terrific new book. Satya Nadella, pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me, Fareed.
You say that qualities like empathy, concern, mindfulness are going to be at the heart of Microsoft winning the next wave of technology battles and kind of becoming or maintaining its role as a technology giant. It's a strange thing for the CEO of a technology company to do. So I want to start by having you explain personally how you got to this point of understanding it. And tell me about your mother, who was not a technology person, not an engineer, not even an economist like your dad was, but she was a scholar of Sanskrit and had a very different outlook on life than one thinks of when one thinks of the Indian driving, achievement-oriented parent.
I have learned the power of empathy. It is not some innate capability that I had, but it was life's experiences, whether it was my mother, quite frankly, now I see it more clearly, her influence, or the birth of my son. In the case of my mother, my dad was this, as you said, as an economist who was in love with ideas.
Ironically, a Marxist economist.
A Marxist economist. And he would be always loved with ideas. He had intellectual curiosity and ambition. My mom, who herself was an academic, was more about stay calm, absorb what is happening, be mindful. In fact, she would always ask me, are you happy? And it was not a banal question. It was like, are you truly able to take it all in? And quite honestly, when growing up, sometimes I would even get irritated. And only now I realize, as I grow each year, that the lessons she tried to teach me throughout are the more enduring ones. And so her influence has been tremendous.
I mean, it's an important point, again, from an immigrant background, because I think of my father, who was a very driven, self-made man. I think if you had asked him, are you happy, he wouldn't have understood the question.
Right.
The point of life was not personal happiness. The point was achievement, success, right?
That's right. And sometimes that's how I interpreted it. Like, how can I be happy? I have to be impatient. I have to go on to the next thing. Her thing, I think, was to remind me that you don't do your best work if you're waiting for your next thing. You've got to do your work today and enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it or have meaning, which came much later, in fact, from another very interesting source, Doug Burgum, who's the governor of North Dakota now, once looked at me and said at work, saying, you are going to spend more time at Microsoft than with your children. And so you better figure out a way for this work to have more meaning. That was one of those other moments I was perhaps in my mid-30s, and I realized, what is he saying? But it struck me as the most best advice that I've gotten.
You had another occasion to be shocked into finding empathy with the birth of your son. Explain what happened.
I was 29 years old. Anu and I were only children of our parents, and so this was our first son, and we were all very excited. The entire family was. And even a few hours before Zain was born, we were mostly concerned about, is the nursery going to be ready, or how is Anu going to go back to her job as an architect? And those were our concerns. And then, of course, life changed that night. And the first...
And he's born. Explain what happened.
There was in utero asphyxiation, and he was born with severe cerebral palsy, and he's quadriplegic today. He's 21 years old. The first couple of years, Fareed, I must say, I struggled. I struggled mostly because I felt something happened to my plan, my ideal. A lot of questioning, why me, why us? Whereas Anu, right off the bat, was all about, driving Zain from therapy to therapy and making sure he got the best shot, the best chance. And without schooling me in particular, I got schooled because I saw her and her approach, and then I realized that nothing happened to me. Zain was the one suffering, and it was my responsibility as a father to see that through his eyes and do the best I can. And that, I think, when I look back, was probably one of those moments of hit refresh that really helped shape who I am at work even. And it's not that, that was the only incident, but I think that's where I'm now a firm believer that your life's experience is what's going to help you develop increasing levels of empathy for more people. And that's what's going to make you a good leader, a good colleague, and a good innovator.